now at get.buzz. Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
Welcome back, everyone. Some great news in the drug war data mines today. We've gotten the latest poll from the General Social Survey. This is a large national survey they conduct every 2 years, and it's widely considered to be the gold standard for public opinion research. And for the first time in the General Social Survey, we have a majority of Americans nationwide in support of the legalization of marijuana. Researchers asked 1,600 respondents, do you think the use of marijuana should be made legal or not? 52% said it should be legalized, compared to 42% who were opposed. Another 7% were undecided. That support in the GSS is up 9 percentage points from 2012. So following the legalization in Colorado and Washington state, the people of America looked at the results, and it seems they're in support. So much for the scaremongering of Kevin Sabet and the people at Project Sam, who always told us that legalization would be its own worst enemy. And as soon as people saw the devastation that was wrought in the two legal states, they would come to reject the progress of freedom. But that is not happening. More and more people are supporting marijuana legalization now. That is a reality. And it's a very interesting thing to look at these numbers from the GSS. The survey goes back. The first time it asked was in 1974, and back then the support for marijuana legalization was at a paltry 19%. Only 1 out of 5 Americans supported marijuana legalization in 1974. The early rise in that through the 70s jumped from 19% to 30%. From 74 to 78. A lot of that has to do with the decriminalization of marijuana that took place in the years between 1973 and 78. And as people saw decriminalization wasn't causing the sky to fall, more and more of them began to support marijuana legalization. 30% was as high as that number got in the 20th century. It dropped back down to as low as 16% by 1990 after the 1980s and the Reagan administration and the Just Say No movement and the crack cocaine epidemic withered away support for marijuana legalization. But after the election of President Bill Clinton and the beginning of the awareness of medical marijuana in the country throughout the mid-90s, support for marijuana legalization began to rise again, reaching 32% by 2006. So 2006, just 9 years ago, we had 32%, a little less than 1/3 of the people in support of marijuana legalization. We now are showing a 20-point jump in the support for marijuana legalization in just the past decade, which very closely mirrors the same sort of statistical jump we've seen in the support for gay marriage in this country. And it's interesting as we look at the polls going back throughout the years, we can take a look at a couple of these. First of all, I'd like to show you a slide of all of the polls for marijuana legalization dating all the way back to 1969, the first Gallup poll to ask the question. And you can see how that support rose rapidly throughout the 1970s, declined throughout the 80s, and then since the 1990s, support for marijuana legalization has gone nowhere but up. This is every single poll I can find on marijuana legalization, and as you can see, most of them are now trending above 50%. If we narrow that graph down to just the polls from the 21st century. These are polls from news organizations, news television networks, as well as the polling organizations such as Pew and Gallup and General Social Survey. They're all color-coded here. You can see that we have most of the polls now in the past few years coming up above 50%. And the trend for these polls is all on the rise, with the exception of a couple of outliers. In fact, since 2009, over the past 5 years, there are 20 polls that have shown 50% or greater support for marijuana legalization in America. 20 polls over the past 5 years. This is a clear indication of why even the Republicans, even those on the conservative side of the aisle, are recognizing the political potency of the marijuana legalization issue. We also find throughout these polls that men's support for legalization ranks about 5 points higher than women's support, and Democratic support for legalization rates about 14 points higher than Republican support. But still, we are approaching 2/3 of GOP millennials who support marijuana legalization. It's clear that this issue is gaining traction, and the more states that continue to legalize and give people a great example of the fact that the sky doesn't fall when you legalize marijuana, this support can only go up. As people recognize the tax benefits, the benefits of not incarcerating a large number of citizens and ruining their lives, the benefits of providing medical cannabis to those who can really use it, the benefits of industrial hemp. Once you've legalized marijuana, that becomes much easier to do. All of these benefits are going to continue to accrue, and I believe within 5 years, it'll be difficult, if not impossible, to find any demographic with majority support for keeping marijuana illegal and imprisoning those who